Hello and welcome to the Armando Chapa Legacy video. For those people who may not know, Mr. Chapa has led a remarkable life, one built on hard work, kindness, passion, and perseverance. My name is Alan D. Echeverry and I have worked at Chapa Middle School for 14 years. I am here to share the story of Mr. Armando Chapa to inform you why the best middle school in the universe is named in his honor. Whenever I think of Mr. Armando Chapa, I think of a beloved, kind man who helped shape Hayes CISD and its community. He has had many different titles in his inspiring life, such as father, husband, educator, counselor, principal, soldier, and friend. Armando Chapa was born January 1st in 1941 in Houston, Texas, the third of his 5 siblings to his parents, Jose and Alberta Chapa. He attended school in Houston ISD and he graduated at Milby High School where he played football, basketball, and baseball. Due to the encouragement from his father, Mr. Chapa went to the University of Texas at Austin. There he graduated in 1963 with a bachelor's degree in physical education with a minor in history. After Mr. Chapa graduated, he enlisted in the National Guard, where he served in Louisiana for 4 months before returning to his hometown of Houston. Then he worked at Gary Job Corps in San Marcos, Texas for 10 years. This is a place where young people can learn trade skills to enter the workforce. During this time period, he met his wife Evangelina, or Angie as she is known, and they had 2 daughters, Veronica and Cynthia. In 1974, Mr. Chapa was recruited to help with the special education program in Hayes CISD by Mo Johnson, who is the namesake for Beta Johnson High School. In 1977, Mr. Chapa became the principal at Hayes Middle School, and during this time, he worked a full-time job, but then on the weekends and late nights, he earned his master's degree in guidance counseling and administration from Prairie View A&M. During this time period, he had 3 more daughters, Rebecca, Jessica, and Cassandra. In 1986, Mr. Chapa moved to the new Kyle Middle School, which is now Wallace Middle School. This is when he earned the nickname Papa Chapa. While some would say it was because he was now the father of 5 daughters, others would say it came from his commitments to his students as a father figure. In 1993, Mr. Chapa moved to Barton Middle School and was a counselor there until he retired in 2004. During this year, Mr. Chapa was chosen as Co-Citizen of the Year by the Hayes County Free Press. Even after his retirement, Mr. Chapa was involved in the community as a counselor to kids in Lockhart. Mr. Chapa loved to attend events like the Chapa 5K, awards ceremonies, and family events hosted at his namesake school, Armando Chapa Middle School in Kyle, Texas. We started the process of creating this video months ago. We reached out to many co-workers and family members who knew him best. Sadly, Mr. Chapa passed away recently, so the tone of our video has changed from a celebration to a memorial. We asked ourselves and others what we thought that his legacy is. Legacy stands for the impact that has been made on others and the lessons learned from each other. Mr. Chapa had such a profound impact on so many people in his life that it is just awe-inspiring. As I had time to reflect on not only my own personal experiences with him, I would read what people had to say about him through social media. One thing that rings true to what many people said about him is how extraordinarily kind and fair he was as a leader. As an administrator and counselor, Mr. Chapa promoted success on the campuses with his hard work, his sense of humor, his sound judgment, and most of all, his genuine concern for both his students and teachers. The year he retired, he was nominated as Citizen of the Year by the Hayes Free Press. In there, a parent wrote, "He never gives up on a student. He works with a kid not just at home, but also in the community." Another teacher wrote, "It is not often that you will find a principal so dedicated to the students, faculty, and whole community. Mr. Chapa is there to cover classes when teachers are out and is even available on weekends to unlock doors when keys get accidentally locked in rooms. He is the most caring principal I have been associated with in my 14 years of teaching. Another person said, I cannot count the number of times I have seen him buy a kid lunch or a treat for doing well, as if he doesn't have 5 kids of his own. He always seems to know which kid needs a hug. Also, former students return to him and visit long after graduation. Colleague and community member Jim Cullen said, I believe Mr. Chapa's legacy has long been one of being a truly special person who was bedrock in helping make Hayes CISD the special place that it is. Thank you for being as special as a person as you are. Former Hayes CISD teacher Patty Haverda said, Chapa was fair and honest all the time with everyone, teachers, students, parents. Whenever I'd have an error in judgment, he'd call me into his office and discuss it, and that was it. That talk didn't require a second conference. Kathy Sontag worked with Mr. Chapa at Kyle Middle School. He was the best principal that I have ever taught under. You never knew if Mr. Chapa was kidding or if he was serious. His legacy is his love for his family, his leadership and dedication to his faculty, students, and friends. Thank you for believing in me and hiring me and always being a strong supporter of me and my family. Sue Fowler, a former Chapa Middle School teacher, said Mr. Chapa was an outstanding principal and human being. His leadership, kindness, and sense of humor could not be matched. He really cared about the kids and staff. Mr. Vella, assistant principal at Chapa Middle School, said, Mr. Chapa talked the talk and walked the walk. I believe that Mr. Chapa was a man of his word. If he said he was going to do something, then you could be sure that he was going to do it. He was a great friend to all. Cameron Controne worked at Chapa Middle School for 8 years, and he said, I came to know Mr. Chapa and found myself in many situations where I would ask myself, what would Mr. Chapa do? His character and values he lived have left an indelible mark on this community. I am humbled and grateful for the chance to have known him. His legacy will always live on at Chapa Middle School and beyond. Lisa Walls, principal of Chapa Middle School, was asked, what do you remember most about Mr. Chapa? She said, I noticed the smile he had on his face whenever he came to CMS. He was always smiling, in a great mood, and had a positive attitude. He was so welcoming, and it was easy to talk to him. He had a sense of humor, and I love that about him. He reminded me of my dad a lot. When she was asked what was something funny that she was willing to share, she said, Mr. Chapa was a person who had a sense of humor. Anytime he saw Rod Walls in the building, they would both joke that there must be food because they were both there. The kids would also ask if Mr. Chapa owned the school. When asked what people should know about Mr. Chapa, Mrs. Walls responded, people should know that he has been so active at his namesake. From the time we opened, he was here all the time. He mentored our kids every year, which means he came to campus weekly to check in with his mentee. One year, he mentored a kid whose brother he had mentored. We met the boy's father, and Mr. Chapa went out of his way not only to help our CMS student, but he talked to the father to get the family help. If he wasn't mentoring, then he was delivering donuts or something to eat for the office. I want people to know that our teachers nominated each other each month for the Chapa Award, and the best thing about getting that award was that they got to go eat lunch with Mr. Chapa. The prize was not going off campus for lunch. The prize was getting to sit with Mr. Chapa and have lunch. Mr. Chapa came to our family nights and brought his grandsons to our events. He came to sporting events. He was present enough so that our kids knew him. He came every year for our award assembly and gave out the coveted Chapa Award to the top 2 students in each grade level. He came to welcome our staff each year so our staff knew him. He was truly part of our CMS community. When asked what was his legacy, Mrs. Wall responded, at CMS, we are instilling and cultivating the work ethic, dedication, and school pride that Mr. Chapa so elegantly exemplified during his career in public education. We are building the Chapa legacy. Just as Mr. Chapa was an active part of his community, Team Chapa has embraced community involvement. We want our community to feel welcome, to feel that this is their school, and to celebrate with one another. The famous educational author Harry Wong once said, Kids don't care about how much you know unless they know how much you care. Mr. Armando Chapa lived that for 30 years as he dutifully and gracefully served the children of Hayes CISD as well as the time he was here at CMS serving our community. Lastly, when Mrs. Walls was asked, "What would you like to say to Mr. Chapa?" she responded, "Mr. Chapa, I have been blessed to serve as principal of CMS for 16 years. I didn't ever think I would stay this long, to be honest. Staying on one campus is not very common anymore in the principalship role. One of the reasons I have stayed is because I love being a principal, but more importantly, I love being a principal at Armando Chapa Middle School. It has been my honor to serve in a building named after you. You are a person I greatly admire. I have always loved your passion for education, community, and familia. It is my mission that every staff member, student, and parent know who you are and the legacy that will live on here at CMS. You and Mrs. Chapa and the entire Chapa familia have been and will always be part of our CMS community. Once a cougar, always a cougar." In summation, Mr. Chapa's legacy of being a servant to the Hayes community is irrefutable. He connected on so many levels with so many different people that it is hard to comprehend. He could have been your counselor, a principal, a coworker, a friend, a brother in arms, and on and on. His lasting impact on the Hayes community will forever be cemented at his namesake school, Armando Chapa Middle School. Thank you, Mr. Chapa, for the joy, wisdom, laughs, and camaraderie that you shared with so many people. May you rest in peace.